From wasted investments to buying things that I shouldn't have, there are a few things I did in the past that, after looking back, weren't very smart decisions. So in today's video, I will be sharing 5 things that I will never do with my money again after learning the hard way, which is doing it before. Let's get to it. So the first thing that I regret doing back then was investing in anything and everything. So I've always been someone who was keen on investing. I was very keen on starting my investing journey when I was just a fresh grad. For some reason, it was always something that I looked forward to. So I started my investing journey by buying some shares of Maybank. Seemed like a very safe bet, right? Buying a bank, and it felt very comfortable as well because it was a Malaysian company. Then I realized I needed some international stock exposure, specifically the US, which is when I found out about Stashaway, which is perfect. So I put some money there as well. One day, back at my office job, this company called Funding Societies, which is a peer-to-peer lending platform, they came over to my office to do a talk, talk about their product, talk about investment opportunities, and I thought it was a really cool concept. So again, I put some money there. I think you guys can see the trend that's starting to form here, but it started to get really bad when I started to invest into US stocks and I got an account with Interactive Brokers. Basically, I had so many different ideas, so many different companies that I wanted to invest my money in, that at one point, I'm pretty sure I had like 40 different stocks. I owned 40 different stocks in my brokerage account, and I didn't even really have a big account. It was still really small back then. And this 40 stocks is on top of all the other investments I was telling you about, my Malaysian stocks, my Stashaway and other robo-advisors, funding societies, as well as ASB. So you guys can see that I had so many different investments at that point. I kind of enjoyed doing this. It was fun to me, but I realized that it wasn't ideal. To be fair, I did sign up to a lot of platforms in Malaysia, especially just because I was testing out these platforms. I was trying to see whether they were worth investing my money in so that I could create content for you guys. But still, I went a bit overboard, spreading my money out a bit too thinly across so many different platforms when I didn't even have that much money yet. The problem with this is that because I had so many different investments to manage, I had my focus spread out a bit, so I didn't really focus on any particular one. And because I was investing little money into many different places, the fees began to go up as a percentage of my overall investments. And the really bad thing, or the worst part about all of this, is that as a whole, I'm pretty sure my investment portfolio didn't even outperform the US stock market, which is the S&P 500. So I realized this after about, I would say, a year and a half, and I finally decided to stop investing into US stocks because that was the main culprit. And I don't mean that I completely pulled out of exposure to US stocks. I just meant I wasn't going to invest into individual names anymore because I would just have way too many. And that is when I started moving everything into ETFs. But still, initially during this transition, I still had that investing bug in me. I still wanted to invest in many different things. So of course, I couldn't just invest in a few ETFs. I had to invest in, I think I had 15 different ETFs. I couldn't just invest in one S&P 500. I needed an investment into fintech. I remember I needed some investments into e-commerce ETFs. I needed some investments into even maybe some biotech stocks. So I still had a few different ETFs for me to manage. I mean, it was better than me owning 40 different stocks, right? But I would say it still wasn't very efficient for me to be managing all of these different ETFs. And at the end of the day, again, I don't think I even outperformed the S&P 500, which then, what's the point? And that's where I am today. Basically, all of this has led me to being more simplified for my investing approach. I pretty much have only a handful of different ETFs I'm currently investing in, one in the US stock market, one in the total world stock market, and then a bit in emerging markets, and that's pretty much it. That is my entire investing portfolio in stocks. And even for crypto, it's the same. Back then I used to hold a bunch of different, I would say, garbage coins, Back then, we all liked those small market cap coins, hoping that it would be the next Bitcoin. But these days, I would say actually 100% of my crypto investments are all in just Bitcoin. I want to keep everything simple. The lesson that I learned from all of this basically is that in investing, keeping it simple is not only easier for us to manage. In the end of the day, most of the times, it will actually even outperform. Moving on to the second thing that I won't do with my money anymore, which is to follow advice online blindly. This is actually kind of a double-edged sword. So on one hand, having access to so much information online where you can completely self-learn for free, that is a good thing. And that is exactly how I actually learned up on personal finances, all the different aspects of it. It's all self-learned from things that I found online, from blogs, from YouTube videos, and all that stuff. But on the other hand, we can't just blindly follow whatever advice we see online because, Everybody is different, and some people might not be giving the best advice out there. And that includes me, right? Whoever is watching this video, if you guys are watching this video, don't just blindly follow whatever I say. Always take it with a pinch of salt and think whether it applies for you. Anyway, there were a few times that this happened to me back in the days, back when I was younger, and a lot of it is actually related to investing, which is why I owned so many different stocks in the first place. So I was on Twitter a lot, and on Twitter there was actually a pretty big community of US stock investors, and they will often, talk about this new stock that they're looking at, or they will share their overall portfolio, every single name in there, and I'll be looking at all these tweets, right? And of course, I will be influenced by it. Sometimes I will see someone saying, hey, this stock looks really good now, it has very high growth potential, so I would do some research on it. Whatever research I did was actually just looking for confirmation bias, and then I would pretty much be blindly investing into that stock. And that's why I had 40 different stocks, because I followed so many people and there were just so many ideas out there. Was this good? Again, I think having this information online was good for me to at least understand the different stocks, get all these ideas, but I shouldn't have blindly followed so many of them. I should have done a bit more research, been a bit more intentional with my investing, and then made the decision after I've done all of that. But there was other stuff too aside from investing. There's also a lot of talk about, voluntarily contributing towards things like EPF and PRS, but I'll talk about this later on. And then these days, of course, there's a lot of people posting content online. I know it's a bit ironic for me to say because I am one of them, but there's a lot of blanket or general advice out there, never invest in this, don't save your money here, never take that loan. There's just so many things that people are saying, which can be actually a lot of information overload. So if you try and follow them blindly, it might not only be bad, you might actually see conflicting views from different people. So then what do? Now, I wouldn't say these things are bad. I wouldn't say that people are giving or everyone is giving bad advice out there. It's just that, as the name implies, right? Personal finance is personal. Everybody's situation is different. Everyone's risk tolerance is different. Everyone's investment objectives are different. So you can't just look at what someone else is doing and then blindly follow it because they might be in a totally different situation. Maybe they go all into Bitcoin, but secretly they have 5 million ringgit in EPF. If you don't have that amount of money in your EPF, then maybe you shouldn't be putting everything into Bitcoin, right? That's just an example. So whenever you guys see these things online, even when you're watching my video, always take it with a pinch of salt. Just take it as information, as an idea, and then think about it for yourself. Does this suit your goals? Anyway, the third thing that I will never do with my money again is locking it up unnecessarily. So in the Malaysian context, there are two main avenues that people do this, which is EPF and PRS. To a lesser extent, I guess you could also consider fixed deposits as locking in your money, even though it's not that long term, right? You can choose even 2-3 months if you wanted to, but even then, I wouldn't put my money into fixed deposits because I don't want to lock my money up. And before you guys get all heated up, I know a lot of you guys like EPF, a lot of you guys like PRS because there are a lot of benefits. I must say that I do think EPF especially is a very good initiative, at least by the government. It forces everyone to save for their retirement. It forces your company to save for your retirement. And at the end of the day, the returns are actually really, really good considering that you are almost on zero risk. Then there's the benefit of tax relief for both EPF and PRS that I was talking about earlier. So back then when I was younger, just starting out my career, I think my tax bracket was about 18%. So I was thinking, if I put some money into EPF, put some money into PRS, that is an instant 18% cashback for me. I even made a video about that for PRS. But yeah, I guess that was me kind of blindly following advice online because that is what a lot of people said you should do. But after thinking about this for a few years, again, I don't think this is a bad decision. Don't go and quote me and say I think EPF and PRS are bad. I just realized that, after a few years thinking about it, that this is not for me. Personally, I like to have maximum liquidity when it comes to not just my money, but also all my investments. And that's one of the reasons why I really like ASB because, I can invest as much money as I want there. Yes, I guess there's a cap. But the more important thing is I can withdraw it at any time I want. I think EPF over the last 5-10 years has outperformed ASB, but to me, that extra, 0.51% additional performance is not worth locking my money in until I retire. Even for my stock investments right now, everything that I have in my brokerage account, everything that I have in Stashaway, all those robo-advisors, all those crypto, I know that I'm putting this money in and I don't plan to touch it for at least, 10, 20 years. I don't plan to touch that money at all. But I just like to have the option of liquidating it if I needed to. And if I put this money into EPF or PRS instead, I don't have that choice anymore. Basically, that decision is out of my hands. This is just a personal decision based on my relationship with money. I know some people like to put money into these products actually because they know that if they leave their money in a bank account or even in a brokerage account, they might be tempted to withdraw it and spend it. I have a colleague who's exactly like this actually. So yeah, if you are that type of person, then maybe EPF will make sense for you. It just doesn't make sense for me. In the recent 13th Malaysian plan that the government just announced, they also said that they were considering restructuring EPF so that a portion of our money we can withdraw it at retirement age, and then the remaining portion will be paid out to us in the form of something like a pension. So I don't think that this is outright a bad decision or a bad idea, but personally, again, I just don't like the fact that the government is going to be paying me out monthly like a pension with money that I actually saved on my own, because to me, the EPF is my money. Again, this is just my personal decision, but the thing is, if I made voluntary contributions in EPF over the last 10 years, ever since I started working, I cannot then decide that I don't like this decision by the government, I want to withdraw my money. Once I put it there, it is locked in there until I retire at minimum. So yeah, whenever I invest these days, my priority is always to have maximum liquidity, which limits me to a few investments, right? ASB, money market funds, stocks, crypto. I say a few investments, but that's actually enough for most people. And this is also why I don't consider investing into private businesses or real estate even, because to me, those are a bit less liquid. Anyway, if any of you guys want to invest into Malaysian or US stocks, then check out Mumu Malaysia. They are one of my favorite brokers right now. I also invest a big portion of my long-term portfolio there. So if you guys want to check them out, I'll leave the link in the description of this video. You'll get some nice freebies and support the channel when you use my link to sign up. The fourth thing that I would never do with my money anymore after learning the hard way still makes me cringe a bit, and that is underestimating big expenses. Now, I haven't had many in my life, big purchases, thankfully, but there's one that still makes me kind of look back, or I think it was a bad financial decision at the time, which is me buying my first car. The story goes like this. Back in 2020, I was considering buying my first car because I was using my mom's car, but then my sister was graduating, so I thought it was only fair that she got the car, and then I went ahead and bought my own one. As timing would have it, as luck would have it, at the time, exact time that I was considering buying a car, Proton decided to announce the Proton X50, which I really liked the look of, so I thought this is a car that I'm going to buy. Income back then wasn't actually very high. It was about 5,800 ringgit, I think, which, thinking back, it wasn't enough for me to buy this car, but I did have supplemental income from this YouTube channel, which made me think, maybe I could afford it. So I did all my calculations, my monthly cash flow, my expenses, my income, and then I figured out at the time that yes, I could afford it based on the current scenario. The thing is, back then, I was living in my mom's house, so I didn't have to pay any rent, utilities, anything like that, and I was eating her free food. So yeah, I guess my expenses were pretty low. But thinking back on it, if I was to be a bit more cautious or conservative or more realistic with what car I could afford, I would now think that I shouldn't have bought this X50 back then. The thing is, like I said, there are a lot of variables with my financial situation back then. What if I stopped making money from my YouTube channel? What if my mom decided that she didn't want to work anymore, so I had to start contributing towards rent? I had to start buying my own food, and then my expenses will go up. Would I still be able to afford the car? Thankfully, none of those things happened, and nowadays, I earn quite a bit more, so I can afford this car comfortably. But again, I still didn't think that, back then it was the smartest move to make. This wouldn't have been such a big issue if it was, let's say, I decided to splurge on an iPhone instead, right? 5,000 ringgit, yeah, maybe I used all of my savings to buy that. Silly decision, but not many repercussions. But this is a car. This is something that we commit to, we take a loan for, and we have to pay off for the next 5, 7, 9 years, whatever it is. Back then, I was young, I wasn't so smart, so yeah, I kind of underestimated how big of a commitment this was. And I've seen this with other people as well. One of my earliest bosses, one of the first bosses I had back in the day, he was about, I think, 29 or 30 years old back then, and even he told me that he regretted buying a house so early on because it made him a lot less flexible. He felt a lot more tied down because of that huge commitment. So these days, whenever I want to make a big financial purchase, I would really take my time to overanalyze it. I would really think, can I really afford this comfortably based on my current cash flow? And then more importantly to me these days is, can I back out of this decision if things were to go wrong? So for example, if you buy a car, I would say it's difficult to back out because if you try to sell the car, most likely you will lose money and sometimes you even have to pay more on the loan. Whereas if you think about something like a house, I'm not saying it's so easy, but at least the house, it would hold value a lot better than a car and your interest won't be as front-loaded compared to a higher purchase loan. Also, what's a big purchase to me and what's a big purchase to you, it can really vary depending on our situation. So for me, like I said, buying a car, buying a house, that's a big purchase. For you, it could be going on a very nice holiday, right? If you have to take on a loan to go on that nice holiday, that could be considered a big purchase. So you really need to think about it, whether you can afford it. I don't even encourage taking out loans to go on holidays, but if let's say you can't control yourself, you really feel like you need to, then yeah, really think about if this is something that you can afford down the line. And the final thing that I never do with my money anymore is to buy everything brand new. So back then, I think a lot of people feel this way as well. I wanted everything brand spanking new. It's not so nice knowing that someone has used this item before, right? So I wanted everything to be new. I wanted that fresh factory smell, peeling off the plastics, knowing that no one else has touched this item before. Then I realized that I pay quite a big premium just to have this brand new feeling. Is it worth it? I would say sometimes no, sometimes yes. But these days, whenever I want to buy something, especially those items that are a bit more expensive, I will first look at second-hand marketplaces. So places like Mudah, places like Carousel and Facebook Marketplace. The couch that I have in my house right now, that was bought second-hand. The watch that I bought here that I have on my hand, this is also bought second-hand. And the golf clubs that I bought when I just started playing golf, that is well used. I think it's like 5 to 10 years old. All of these things I bought secondhand. I've saved so much money buying these things from someone else, and honestly, I don't think there's a huge difference. So the couch that I bought for this place, it was listed by someone who wanted to move out of their house, so they were just listing it cheap because they didn't want to bring it along with them. And then this watch that I bought it 20% off retail from someone who literally just bought it brand new 1 week before me. And I also have colleagues who've been telling me, they realize that when they want to buy their Continental cars, it's a lot better to consider buying it secondhand because there's a huge depreciation when you just buy it. So even if you buy it 2-3 years old, you can often get a very big discount. Yes, it won't be brand new. Yes, you won't be the first person sitting in that seat, but is it worth 100,000, 200,000 ringgit to be the first person? That's only for you to decide. For me, it's completely worth it buying certain things secondhand. The next time you guys want to buy something a bit on the pricier side, let's say above 500 ringgit, before you decide to buy it brand new on Shopee or that shop that you saw it at the other day, try looking at places like Carousel, Facebook Marketplace. You will be surprised at the amount of deals that you guys can get. So those are the 5 things that I would no longer do with my money after learning the hard way. Let me know in the comments below if you guys have anything else to add from your own experiences. Thanks for watching this video to the end, guys. Give me a huge thumbs up if you enjoyed it and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. See you guys in the next one. Peace out.